Welcome back, everyone, to Ed Up Edge, where we discuss all things career education, leadership, and life hacks. Hear from some of the most amazing and insightful guests in higher education. Let's go. All right, welcome back, everyone. Today is going to be a very special episode because Ed Up Edge with your host, Kathy Belletti, is teaming up with Laurie Shanderson, who is the host of Ed Up Accreditation Insights.
Yeah.
Okay, this topic is so important because what we don't understand is that our advisors, sometimes they don't understand how to explain accreditation to their potential students appropriately.
Mhm.
And in a lot of cases, because they don't understand it for themselves.
Right.
So this is why I had to bring Laurie on because she served in health and education for 25 plus years. She's a former chancellor, founding dean, and now she's the CEO of Accreditation Insights.
Yes.
So welcome, Laurie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is going to be an exciting discussion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I know the crowd wants to know, okay, Laurie, where did this all begin for you? Give us a little background.
Well, I started off in higher ed as an instructor part-time, and I actually was a researcher, and
Interesting.
I was commuting. And so was one of my friends says, "Oh, why don't you teach this class?" I started teaching. Then I was a program director, then assistant dean, associate dean, a founding dean, a chancellor. And within all of those roles, of course, accreditation is very important. So accreditation started off as a way to ensure quality for consumer protection, right? You want to go to
Mhm.
an academic institution and you want to make sure that the institution is following the practices and guidelines, not only relative to what they say they're doing,
Mhm.
but meeting the expectations of those in the public, that it is, an institution that is rigorous and meets the claims that it makes relative to the education it provides to its students. And, it's just something that we need to pay attention to. So I became very interested in it. Um,
Mhm.
I love operational aspects of higher education administration. And I've secured initial accreditation and reaccreditation and reaffirmation for many programs and institutions where I've worked. So it's
Nice.
a very interesting and fun topic.
I love it. So let's dive into accreditation. Okay. Why is this so critical for institutions to be accredited?
Again, it really is the quality assurance, right? It's the stamp
Mhm.
of approval that I'm not just creating an institution. Here we are. What's the matter, you? And I say we're good. It's having an independent set of eyes scrutinizing what it is that I'm doing. And maybe scrutinizing is not a good word to use, but is evaluating that
Mhm.
the practices and the promises that I'm making are in alignment with who I say I am and what I say I'm going to do. So it really is a good self-assessment. It's a way to reflect, to see that you're doing what you say you're doing and you're providing
Mhm.
value to students. So it's a quality assurance endeavor. And it's
Okay.
important because students want to know that the institution that they're investing in relative to investing in themselves has met the standard for, said institution, and that they can trust it's going to be someplace that someone else has vetted and has given a stamp of approval on.
Got it. So when we talk about admissions, okay, because admissions, is the engine that drives the entire school. What I've noticed in listening to different calls and shopping different schools, there are some advisors, they kind of just follow the script and they glaze over accreditation. And what they don't understand is a lot of your students, they're already doing research. They understand what accreditation is. And sometimes I have to chuckle to myself when I hear some of these descriptions. Some of them, they just skip over it altogether because they do not understand how to explain it.
Yeah.
Right. So, for some of the teams that are listening, what is the easiest way to break down accreditation to a student?
So I would say this to your team. Think about when you purchase something on Amazon or any other site. You want to see the feedback from those that purchased this before you. I mean, it's the best way for you to see what you're getting and what others think about it. You read the comments, and you're getting this kind of perspective on what it is you're about to purchase, what you're about to invest in. So it's the same thing with accreditation, in that there is a finding. There is a regional accreditor, no more regional, but there's an accreditor that has said, here's where this institution excels, here's where there might be some challenges, but they've met every requirement to have earned being accredited. And so it just helps you decide where you want to invest. It helps give you confidence in knowing where you want to go. And so your advisor should look at it as a selling point. Our institution is accredited. We're accredited by whom? We have rigorous standards, and this guarantees that you're going to be exposed to a great education. So I think they should use it as a selling point to help establish with future students that the institution is credible and
Hmm.
has the necessary, background to provide them with a good education.
And correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to employers, right? Employers are more privy to actually hire students who have graduated from an accredited institution, correct?
Well, yes, in many instances, and
Uh-huh.
there's two examples I can give. If you
Sure.
think about, when you take a flight, you want to know that that pilot has gone through an accredited program for aviation, and that means he would have been exposed to everything he needs to know to get you where you need to be safely. He knows what happens if lightning hits the plane. He knows how to navigate turbulence and storms and other types of conditions. But you
Hmm.
want to make sure that that school has exposed him, and his peers to rigorous training that includes everything that the industry says it should include. It includes everything that we know he should be exposed to in that training to do what he needs to do safely. So accreditation is the same for academic institutions. There needs to be some quality assurance in the fact that, the instruction that's provided and those instructors are all of quality, have met certain criteria, and are ready and prepared to deliver on that promise of a rigorous and really good educational experience. So there's that. Now, in terms of employers,
Hmm.
in many instances, it's the same thing. They want to be sure that their employees have been exposed to industry knowledge, things that they believe are relevant, align with professional organizations. They want to make sure if you belong to a certain type of discipline, that everything the industry believes you should know, you know. And accreditation helps to confirm that that is the case. Programmatic accreditation, institutional accreditation for different reasons, but
Hmm.
you want to have the knowledge of knowing that there has been an intention to make sure that the instruction is of quality.
It's funny that you brought that up because I was just about to ask you the difference between institutional accreditation and programmatic accreditation. There's a lot of new enrollment leaders out there. There's a lot of new campus directors who've never gone through an accreditation visit before.
Right.
And I know they've probably heard horror stories because I've sat through a couple myself. But what is the difference between the two and why is that so important?
Well, institutional accreditation is what many colleges and universities have that say they can function as a college or
Hmm.
university. So there's that. And then within that institution, there may be something like nursing. And you want
Hmm.
to make sure that the nursing program itself has met the rigorous standards of accreditation for their discipline. So that's more programmatic. That's programmatic accreditation, nursing, speech language pathology, business. They have programs that are of quality, that want to earn the quality status symbol. They want to make sure that their programs are rigorous, and so they become accredited. And that's different than saying, what's the matter you? Our nursing program is accredited. What's the matter you is accredited to be a college, to be a higher education institution. So there's the overall accrediting for the
Hmm.
institution, and then for the program, we're saying that the program has um, accreditation.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to the accreditation visit, right? I know the minute people hear about accreditation visits coming through, everyone starts freaking out and everyone's flipping their offices over and they're like, and it's kind of like a
Mhm.
circus, to put it lightly. Why do you think that is? And how could campuses be more prepared when it comes to accreditation visits?
That's a great question. And I think people are afraid of accreditation. They think someone's coming in
Mm-hmm.
to scrutinize. I'll use that word here now appropriately. And that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
The accreditors come in to just ensure that what you say you're doing, you're doing. Is your mission in alignment with your practices? Are you functioning in a operational way that's responsible? Are you not harming students by virtue of your practices? I mean, there's so many factors that accreditation considers. There's so many things that the site visitors look for, but it's not a gotcha moment. It's not
Mm-hmm.
for that purpose. It's to help the institutions understand where they're excelling and where they may have some challenges. It's a really self-reflective process where the institution gets to look at itself and say, here's why we became accredited.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a reminder as to where we are with regards to those metrics. So I think institutions can stay in front of the accrediting process and not be so fearful of it if they, number one, remember what they had to do to become accredited. All of these things still matter. So
Mm-hmm.
to forget them is not good. So you should build in processes in your regular assessments of areas to just determine that you're on track so that when it's time for a site visit, there's not this big scramble because you've already
Mm-hmm.
been measuring, you've already been watching, you've already been monitoring and making adjustments as necessary. So that really is what the site visit is about. It's just making sure that things are running the way that you say they are. It's making sure that your documentation, as well as the knowledge base relative to your staff, faculty, students, that everyone is on the same page relative to the offerings that you have. They understand processes and how to do things and where to get help, and making sure that's also in your documentation and formalized in your processes. So it's a good thing. And if
Mm-hmm.
you create a culture of accreditation at your institution, it's nothing you are afraid of, but it's something you welcome because you want a fresh set of independent eyes. You want your peers to be able to come in and say, hey, what about this? Have you forgotten about this? Or, here's an area where you might want to focus. I think there just needs to be a mentality shift on what accreditation means and what the regular site visits mean. It's more just
Mm-hmm.
about quality assurance and not about you're wrong for this and you're bad. And it's not that type of endeavor.
You know what? It's actually it's a mindset, right?
Yeah.
So if schools would begin to think about accreditation as, okay, these are a group of people who are coming in and they're partnering with our school. They're actually looking at the way our school is ran and they're giving us ideas and feedbacks on how to upkeep, a healthy institution, how to upkeep a healthy curriculum for the sake of our students. I think it would make a huge difference. It's the same thing when students enroll and everyone is freaked out about student loans. In a lot of cases, it's because they've heard horror stories.
Yeah.
So now the minute you hear student loans, they're like, oh, no, no, thank you. I don't want anything about that. But it's because they're misinformed. So I think it happens the same way with accreditation. They may have partnering schools or they may have people who work in different schools and they're just nightmare stories. So now when they hear visitors coming, they're like, oh my gosh, I remember what my friend said. And now everyone is going haywire.
But the visit is conducted by your peers. So there are
Mm-hmm.
peer institutions similar to your institution and
Mm-hmm.
volunteers for all of the accrediting bodies that are familiar with your type of institution. So
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones that come and look at your institution and provide feedback because they're most familiar with that institution's size, type, setting, and they can offer valuable peer-to-peer feedback
Mm-hmm.
relative to the functionings of the institution. It should be a positive experience, and I know that there have been negative experiences, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not the intention. The intention is to have a good set of independent eyes give you feedback that is necessary for you to thrive and to be sustainable.
Absolutely. And listeners, I really hope that you're taking notes, okay? I hope that the information that Laurie is giving you is putting you at ease, okay?
Yes.
So, Laurie, are there any common challenges that institutions face during the accreditation process? And how does your consulting firm help them overcome them?
So I think the common challenge is what you mentioned earlier, right?
Hmm.
We have a site visit coming, and then everyone stops doing everything and they start to focus in a disjointed way. And how you combat that is by being organized earlier on. So it really is making sure that you have regular checkpoints with regards to the data that the accrediting body is going to want to know about. And those things you really should be in tune to anyway, because they're
Hmm.
all about regular operational information that you need to function. You'd need to know about enrollment numbers. You'd need to know about the appropriateness of certain physical settings to meet the needs of different types of programs. You'd need to know about the financial health of the institution. And so with regular checks and regular ways that you monitor annual reports and building some of the data collection into strategic planning. These are ways you can stay in front of and ahead of the game. Having advisory boards that provide insightful information relative to industry standards that may change, and using that information to make programmatic changes and documenting the results, of the experiment, if you will. These
Hmm.
things are all important. And I think being in the forefront by building those into regular processes, regular assessment, regular feedback mechanisms is how you get in front of it. So at Accreditation Insights, we provide
Hmm.
so many services to help through the accreditation process. So if you've had to write a self-study, we help you with that. Sometimes there are some individuals that you need to work around, and politically you can't. And so we bring teams together with a common goal to understand the process. We make sure everyone understands their role and the information that they can provide. We make sure we have discussions with the teams to prepare them for site visits. We make sure information is updated and that it's consistent in internal documents. We just really help institutions understand the data flow, where they have challenges, and how they can best prepare and how they can sustain any operational changes with regards to data collection after the site visit.
Hmm.
How they can build in these practices and create a culture of accreditation so that it's
Hmm.
something that's welcomed and it doesn't cause fear and it doesn't cause disruption to everyday processes.
So, when you were talking earlier, first of all, how often are accreditation visits?
So it depends on the program.
Hmm.
If it's programmatic or if it's institutional, the timeliness of the visit is dictated by when the accreditation was initially secured, uh,
Hmm.
what the status of that was. Was it probationary? Was it, tentative? Like, it just really depends on
Hmm.
an individual institution or program where they are at the time in the process when they'd get another visit. They typically tend to be 3 to 5 years, but again, it
Okay.
varies depending on the type of program. Some longer than that.
Hmm.
School is performing exceptionally well. They may not need to come back. They may need to maybe provide information in the meantime, but it really depends. It's very institution, very program specific.
And so, if a school had, let's say, an accreditation visit every 3 years, this is something I was thinking about as you were speaking, quality control and self checks quarterly, right? Where you bring everyone together and it's like you're doing a mock accreditation visit. Is that something that your firm actually helps schools with?
If
That
they want,
preparation piece?
if they want something like
Mm-hmm.
that, we absolutely would. But what we try to encourage are sustainable practices. We don't
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to be there now. This goes in direct conflict with us. Making
Mm-hmm.
a living, but we
Yeah.
do want to teach you how to fish. And that means we want you to create the operational processes so that you have a constant feedback loop to know where you are. one area typically always has an impact on another. And so these conversations need to happen, and there needs to be a sharing of information on a regular basis, because units don't operate in a vacuum. If you're doing
Mm,
something in admissions, you may need to know about that in another side of the house. And it's important that you communicate where you are, the significance of those numbers, what they mean to other operations and processes. So it shouldn't be something that you talk about infrequently.
mm-hmm.
And everyone doesn't need to report out at the same time, but you do need to know where you are. So some institutions need help. And sometimes
Yeah.
they want to know, can you help us every quarter? Can you come in
Mm-hmm.
and help us just regroup and talk about these things? But the goal is to help them become independent and to control their data and to control their feedback loops and mechanisms, so
Mm-hmm.
that they continually track, assess, and understand when they need to make adjustments.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Well, how would you say accreditation actually improves student outcomes and foster continuous improvement? In what ways?
You know, just by having the regular touch point,
Mm-hmm.
by having the self-assessment, by having the need to reflect on the practices and to ensure that there's alignment with mission and vision and programmatic outcomes and course level outcomes. Are we doing what we're saying we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's the quality mechanism that's built in. Here's what we need to check, here's what we need to ensure. And by virtue of accreditation and our needing to report on these things, it ensures that we haven't forgotten, and
Mm-hmm.
we are making sure that we are appropriately addressing every aspect of a student's education.
Are there certain areas where you would say most schools kind of fail, where they're at risk of losing their accreditation? Because I find that sometimes some of these schools, they have to know at some point when it gets to that point that it's leading, towards that dark place. Are there different schools that you have dealt with where you can say, you know what, it's always these two areas where schools just totally miss it, and now they're at risk of losing their accreditation?
I would say that there are many reasons why an institution could be at risk,
Mhm.
and they all depend on their standards for accreditation.
Hmm.
Um, but I think, for me, my
Mhm.
experience has been, it typically is operations, and it's a lack of communication and consistency in operational processes that ultimately impacts academic
Mhm.
programs, that ultimately impacts finances, that ultimately impacts. So it, to me, is the kindling point
Mhm.
for a larger explosion. And left unchecked, it
Mhm.
reverberates into many areas that has a lasting impact and can threaten accreditation. So some institutions struggle with finances,
Mhm.
enrollment numbers. That's not a reason to not become accredited. It has to do with your processes and if they are appropriate for the institution. But
Mhm.
operationally, when things are wrong, that is where other areas are impacted that can cause threats. So I think having a good administration,
Mhm.
a strong team, good good mechanisms to discuss when things aren't going well, and then a proactive approach, an innovative approach. Um, staying on top of those things is really what helps institutions, and those better institutions, the ones
Mhm.
that I interview on the podcast that have perfect
Mhm.
accreditation reports, talk about those factors. They have strong teams, they have strong boards, they have institutional support, and they have buy-in from all of the stakeholders, student organizations,
Mhm.
faculty, the staff, the board, the community, and they all believe in the institution and they care about the institution. So they come together to ensure best practices. They talk about things, they talk about areas of challenge, and they set themselves up for success, and that's evident in their reports.
That is so important because a lot of schools understand that once you lose that accreditation, Title IV goes out the window too. And in a lot of cases, everyone starts thinking, we're about to lose our school. So everyone starts jumping overboard when there's a grace period depending on the level, of citations that were found, where they have that grace period to, fix whatever needs to be fixed in order to gain back that accreditation or to keep it. But I find that sometimes it's like the minute it begins, everything starts to roll downhill. And that also leaves room for a lot of sloppy mistakes, which may actually speed up your process.
Well, I've seen an institution or two
Mm-hmm.
have their accreditation pulled, but they came back um,
Strong.
like a phoenix out of the
Mm-hmm.
flames. And they used that opportunity to really get a handle on operations. They used that
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to make some significant changes that
Yeah.
had a lasting impact. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes people come and go and they do damage in the process. They create, I guess, they create a train wreck. They create,
Mhm.
something that you can't avoid. I need more coffee. But the bottom line is,
Uh-huh.
it can be a point of triumph to have these things pointed out. This wakes up the board, it wakes up the community, it wakes up the students. No one wants to attend a program or an institution that's not accredited. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, to get the feedback, you know what you need to do now. You know where you need to focus, and you can come back stronger than before. And typically you do, because you won't regain accreditation unless you demonstrate that
Yep.
you excelled in these areas. So it's not always a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people lose confidence, but it doesn't have to be. And I've seen institutions that have had strong community support. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they've been in their community for a long time, and people believe in them and they support them and know that it's a rough moment, but they have not abandoned them.
Yeah.
And they stood there to see a brighter day. And, there is absolutely an upside to having accreditation removed and to get a report that's not as favorable as you'd like it to, because it gives you the insight and the information you need to then turn that around.
I love it. Laurie, I'm so happy that you came on today to talk about this topic, because I think that sometimes when it comes to this process, it's like a bad game of telephone. No. One person heard a horror story and it trickles down to so many different schools, and now everyone is on edge. But when you're on edge, you're not doing the right thing. You're making these silly mistakes. You're trying to find loopholes, when if you do things the right way from the very beginning, everything can go smooth. And I think this is where your firm actually comes in. So do you have any final thoughts for our audience? And please let everyone know where they can reach you if they need help.
I would say accreditation is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that everyone should be concerned about, because it is quality assurance. It's not
Yeah.
unto itself. It is interdependently important, an important aspect of an academic institution or a program. And you want to support the accreditation process. You want to help any way you can by even sharing the notion of accreditation. For advisors and admissions um, people, it's important for you to know the value of accreditation so you can share that with potential students and use it as a value added factor to help a student decide to attend the institution or not. You can say they've gone through this
Mhm.
rigorous process and they hold accreditation. So it's a positive thing. And for those institutions that are struggling with accreditation, that want to know where and how they can do better, yes, Accreditation Insights can help you. We have a strong team that has expertise in many areas. In fact, every programmatic area, institutional accreditation expertise as well. And we'd love to be able to sit down with you to help you identify where best we can help you leverage the strengths that you have and help you avoid any accreditation pitfalls. And you can find us at accreditationinsights.com. There's a form there where you can ask for more information. And we'd be happy to get back to you to help you, no matter how small, no matter how big. Our goal is to give you the assistance to be able to navigate this process on your own.
Love it. Well, Laurie, thank you so much again for joining us. I hope you guys were taking notes. I hope you're at ease now. Please use Laurie to help you guys. She has so many resources. Okay, especially for some of you who may feel as if you're headed towards that direction that we don't want to go. But once again, thank you for joining us. Until next time. Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
for having me.
I really hope that you enjoyed that episode. I have been working diligently to bring awareness to career schools. There's so much that they have to offer our students and our community. Every single role within the admissions process is critical, whether you're a part of the admissions team, financial aid, career services, academics, everyone deserves a voice. Admissions is the first point of contact for your school. So you want to ensure that you have a team who exudes confidence, passion, and a clear understanding of effective communication with our potential students. I totally understand the pain of missed class starts, low appointment and enrollment conversions, and this is why I created Next Level Admissions Training by Motivate with K.A.T. This platform is a step-by-step process, and it is going to train your new and tenured advisors in every single step of the enrollment process to ensure that our students are inspired and they're ready and prepared to start class. Admissions is not easy. It can be very challenging, but it's definitely worth it. So if you're ready to take your school to the next level, head on over to lessons.motivatewithkat.com and check out Next Level Admissions.